Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another iTWire video. Today I'm joined by Bruce Nixon. He's the CEO of Holocentric. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
So I thought I'd start at the beginning and ask you to tell us about Holocentric's history, what Holocentric is doing today in 2016. And before we get to some of your career highlights, what's the story behind the name Holocentric?
Yeah, right. Perhaps I'll start there with
Please,
Holocentric. With Holocentric, we take a holistic view of an organisation. So rather than looking at bits and pieces of it separately, it's the big picture of how everything works together that determines the success of a business.
And that's normally, you need to be the general surveying the battlefield, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if you're CEO of a company, you want to know how things work across your organisation. So you need a holistic view of the business. And to do that, you really need a means of managing all that complexity that exists in the organisation. So we have all these processes we perform, we have these compliance obligations, we have these regulations we need to deal with, we've got these risks we need to manage, we have these people in the business, how do we structure those, how do we organise those people? So to do that, we have to build that, manage that complexity and capture that in a way. So we do that by building a model. The model represents the business. It's an abstract representation of how the business works, so you understand all those different moving parts and the thousands of connections across an organisation, so that you can make better decisions through the organisation. Sure.
And just like a journalist might have a content management system, you help businesses with a business management system to sort all that out, measure it, analyse it, have all the metrics and analytics, and hopefully move forward and be profitable and successful every year.
Correct, and that involves various initiatives that people organise to change their organisation and move on. So we need to be able to manage those. Who's impacted by that change? What systems do we need to modify to meet those different, implement those initiatives?
And tell us a little bit about your career highlights and how it came to be that you decided, damn it, I've got to write this software and help myself and other businesses succeed.
Well, first of all, I didn't write the software. I'm smart enough to choose somebody and work with a great team that develop the software.
Sure. Well, even better.
But that is even better, absolutely. So recognising the strengths of those people, and I'm very fortunate to have a partner in the Chief Technology Officer, Derek Renouf. So just going back to the history of the company then, so Derek actually wrote the software and it stood the test of time. So back in 2003 when the company commenced, it was very much about solving business issues, problem by problem, project by project. Okay, we're implementing a new IT system, we're upgrading our SAP, we need to undergo some sort of a change, we need to meet a certain regulation. So we can tackle those things one by one, but then that's a project basis. So you're actually building an asset as a result of that. What you're doing is solving problems, but other problems will come back which have a similar pattern. You're not in a great place to address those.
So you found yourself building a problem-solving management platform?
Yeah, and then we decided correct. So we had the ability to solve those problems, but we said, wow, there's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge that's wasted along the way. So from a project, you've got certain learnings. You've gone out with the detail of how your processes work. You've got a better understanding of what that system's capability is. Why throw it all away?
Well, many of those things must be able to be cross-platform, cross-business. You could, if it's for one business, the next business is likely to have many of the exact same requirements.
Or even in the same business, but quite often they don't even recognise that because organisations become so large. You've got 20,000 people, 50,000 people. How do you know what's happening across the business? So even when there's the same problem, people are tackling that problem in different ways in the same organisation, let alone across organisations.
Now I want to talk specifically about what your business management software version 3 launched this year. But what was the key, what was that tipping point that you and your partners said, damn it, we've got to do this because we see this problem. I mean, it was 2003 you started, 2009 was version 1.
You're correct. So that's right. In 2007 we started developing that business management system.
Well, there must have been a point of frustration there where you said, we can solve problems for people, let's do it.
Correct. So there's two things. Number one, from our perspective, well, we're looking for new problems to solve all the time, looking for new projects to sell our software into. From our customers' perspective, well, they would use the product, but then they wouldn't use it for the next project because you've got to go back and re-educate people on those. So,
and reconfigure that software too.
And it's so much waste.
Yeah.
So we decided that in 2007, we really like to capture all the learnings from those projects, put it into one place, so you're building that better understanding of the organisation. So now we're starting to get that picture of this is how all the bits and pieces work in the organisation. We can start to see that if we pull this thread, we can see this thing move over here. If we have this new regulation that comes into the organisation, so in banking, for example, with Basel III, we can understand who needs to be informed of that, which systems we have to change. So by building that model over time, you're building up a really valuable asset as to how the organisation works. And then things like compliance obligations, well, that's a byproduct of what you do because you've already captured that in your operations. So that's where we started in 2007. We brought that out to market in 2009 was our first release.
And how does version 3 look today compared to what would have presumably been a much more basic product back 6 or 7 years ago when you first started?
Yeah, look, one of the things that we've done is expand the reach across the organisation. So we started off with business process. So who are the people involved with business processes? Who are managing those processes and designing the processes?
That's the whole business process management, BPM.
Correct, and that's traditionally where it is, the business process management. That's right, that's BPM stuff. Designing of processes and improving processes, looking for ways to whether applying Lean Six Sigma techniques or other improvement techniques around activity-based costing to find improvements in the processes, but then operationalising that. Who are the people who actually have to follow the processes, turn it into the standard operating procedures? So that was one of the evolutions we had over time.
And a lot of it must have come from your customers saying, we need to be able to do this, we need to be able to do that, and things you saw yourself.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a very important point. We have a very close relationship to our customers, so we keep in touch with all of our customers. We want them all to be references for us. They're all blue chip.
And you want them to upgrade to the newest versions?
Of course, of course. We want that ongoing relationship which drives our business as well. So in working with those customers, they've all got their unique requirements. And okay, it might be around meeting new regulations, or it might be upgrading their software, their main software platform. It might be a restructure, it might be a merger, an acquisition. How do you incorporate that but still have an effective organisation to take that forward? So we've worked with our customers over time to really enhance the product, and a lot of these suggestions that we have incorporated today have come from that customer base.
And is there any one new product or feature over the last couple of versions that was really stood out to you as, wow, what a great thing, I wish we thought of that in version 1, and I'm so glad we're doing it now?
So some of the things like being able to manage all the differences in an organisation. So whilst you have a standard way of doing things, you need to cater for different ways, say different customer segments or different products or different territories that you operate in. So there are variances in the way you do things. So how do you manage those variances without losing that efficiency of scale? And what often happens is they duplicate things and then they go off on different tangents, different paths, and they devolve away from the standard. Well, how do you capture that consistency but still allow for those variants? That's part of what we've built into BMS version 3. So how do we compare the processes across an organisation to bring them back into a more consistent way of doing things? Not necessarily the same, but maybe 80 or 90% the same, and then allow those differences to be incorporated as well.
Sounds like it's helping companies, with the famous cliche, to knock down the silos and to bring them all together. And I mean, if there's duplication and wastage in a business, well, that's a cost to the bottom line.
It is.
Might be keeping somebody in a job, but if it's ultimately wasteful, it's wasteful. So I suppose you get a lot of efficiencies out of using it.
I think it's exactly. So yes, breaking down the silos is exactly what we do.
I mean, it's that whole digital transformation thing that people are talking about now. It's the buzzword of 2016, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and your software is helping companies to effectively do that. You were doing digital transformation before it was the buzzword.
Yeah, that's right. So it's another form of transformation. So digital transformation still has the same core ingredients. You have people who do things. You have systems more so in the digital world. Systems will actually run a lot of your business, but you can't do that entirely automated. Sure. You still have people who are responsible for doing things. So, and I think it's the transformation aspect. So whereas a digital startup is quite different from digital transformation.
Sure, well, it's two different things. I mean, digital transformation is a company taking its legacy processes and modernising them, putting them online. A digital startup, well, that's a startup.
Exactly. You can start with a blank sheet and you can design processes and systems according to your digital strategy. For an existing organisation, well, you have to protect what you have. You have a customer base that has certain expectations, and whether you have retail outlets or whatever you might offer to people, you can't turn that off without disenfranchising that customer base. So you want to keep them, but also attract a new type of audience with a digital offering.
Sure. And are people installing your software on their own servers and running it, privately or on their own systems, or is it being accessed by the cloud, or both?
It is both, and in fact that's something we've seen a change in. So back in 2009 when we first released it, almost no one wanted cloud.
Yeah, they wanted on-prem.
It has to be behind our firewalls, all the security issues and all that sort of stuff. Over time that started to break down. So some of it's moving to a private cloud. So some of our large corporations are moving to a private cloud.
Or a hybrid cloud, is that?
Hybrid cloud, exactly.
Really big buzzword.
Yeah, that's one of the new ones as well. But yes, we have a mixture. So we've had probably 50-50. Some are behind their firewall in the traditional sense, as on-premise, and some are out in the cloud. The good thing is they don't notice any difference. From an end user perspective, it's the same.
Sure.
It's really using a browser, using an iPad, using the device of choice to get to the information. You don't need to know where it's stored and how it's managed.
Sure. And I mean, traditionally you imagine companies, or some of them anyways, but certainly if they're smaller ones, but perhaps larger ones too, we're traditionally running this on, Word and Excel and trying to manage it all sort of manually. I mean, you must still be having customers coming to you, fresh, new, that don't have any systems or are struggling with some other system and are sort of getting switched on to the benefits of your platform and for the first time. I mean, it must be a lot of companies must still be undergoing this process.
Yeah, exactly. So, in fact, a lot of organisations are run by Excel.
Yeah,
it's quite staggering the amount of trust they have in Excel.
But I've seen some very large spreadsheets with all sorts of things. It's being used as like a
very impressive piece of work.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. But almost impossible to understand, right?
Yeah,
one person who knows it.
That's it.
And they can work all the
macros,
triggers, the macros.
Yeah.
But also, we find that with Excel, is a large number of spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So there's very rarely one source you go to say, okay, there's Excel, that's the answer. It's not like an SAP where you can go to one integrated application to find out what's going on. And with Word, it's even worse. And that's one of the things we find is that we go to organisations and there's thousands and thousands of documents. And the first thing is they can't even find the right document. So you can do a search. It'll give you an answer.
Sure.
Search always gives you an answer.
Yeah. But is it the
right answer? Correct.
Right.
And when you're talking about compliance and regulations, doing things in a certain manner, an answer is not the right answer.
No, it has to be.
So you picked up the wrong document. You've got last year's compliance regulations here incorporated within that, and you're going to follow that procedure. You just made a mistake.
Yeah.
So now, first of all, you have to get the right document. Secondly, does it have the right information in? If you're trying to manage 10,000 documents across an organisation, what are the chances of the information within those documents being accurate, consistent, and up to date? Pretty much zero. And everywhere we go, people have thousands and thousands of documents. And the documents are written for a particular purpose, for a particular group of people, for a particular need at that point in time. Over time, we need to update that.
Yeah.
A new group of people come along with a different purpose. So if you're talking about someone's looking at risk management, someone's looking at compliance, someone's looking at operations, they have their own different documents because you don't want to try and manage a business from a compliance manual.
Sure.
Or a safety manual. But you need to abide by the safety manual. So how do you incorporate that in one place? And that's one of the things that we look to overcome by capturing the knowledge that exists within those documents into one place that we call the business management system.
And so how long does it take for a company to ingest their existing database of all their information into your system? And what does your user interface look like depending on whether it's the CEO looking at the dashboard or a worker beavering away to comply or to do whatever it is they're supposed to do to move that business forward?
Yeah, I'll answer the easy one first.
Sure.
That's how does it look for different people. So yes, if you're looking for a CEO, you want to know how things are going, how we're performing, what's our bottom line look like, what's our top line numbers look like, what are the issues that are occurring.
Yeah.
So you can get a dashboard for a CEO or a senior executive in an organisation.
And they can obviously drill down as they require.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing is that everything is connected.
Yeah.
So that information is
not
made up from these
dashboard.
numbers.
It's fully connected.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a totally integrated system. So you can drill down to the other information. As you go through the middle management layers, you want to look more day-to-day how things are performing through the organisation, getting down to people who need to perform the work, the operational aspects of the business. Their view is quite different. It's got to be more bottom-up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing this piece of work, I'm processing this invoice, I've got this mortgage application. What do I need to do for that? Or it might be a maintenance procedure for an aeroplane. Okay, we need to be able to look at the detail of how I do that. So they're not interested in the big picture. I've got a job to do.
Yeah.
So they've got quite different needs. A risk manager, okay, here's all my risk profiles and what's the likelihood of those issues occurring and what's the consequences of those issues. So we need to understand that from a risk management perspective. But guess what? They are actually all intertwined. Typically we find people are trying to manage that through separate pieces of information. And the only way to understand whether it's actually accurate is to go and ask somebody and drill into that to find out what's going on and then say, oh, my risk management dashboard isn't accurate at all. Or, no, we do actually have some compliance issues that we need to address. And we find that out through an internal audit, which uncovers certain findings that need to be addressed. And then you go back and modify those and then come back and review that later on.
Sure.
What if you could actually have it in one place so it's a byproduct of that operational part of business?
And that's the benefit of modern technology.
Exactly.
You need all the information at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And does your system allow you to link in with other systems you might have? Companies often have legacy support systems, for example. You ring a customer support person on the phone and they say, sorry, my computer's running a bit slow, and that's because they've got to log into half a dozen legacy support systems for this aspect of the business or some other aspect. I know that companies, like I was at an event in the US with a company called Pegasystems, who do a lot of digital transformation, and they have these software robots that allow customer service people to just sort of click one button and they're logged into 10 different legacy systems in the blink of an eye, as opposed to having to take 10 minutes. Does Holocentric do any of that sort of stuff as well, or is that separate?
It's quite different from what, say, a Pega or those type of systems would do. So what they do is all the transactional processing. So they're involved with an instance of that particular process. So, for example, if you're doing a mortgage application, they would pick up that mortgage application and feed that through the whole process until the rejection or acceptance and processing of that application. What we do is more the design of that process. So yes, it would link into a Pega, it would link into the system. So in performing that step in the process, what system are you using? What part of the system are you using? We can link directly to that screen that people might use in following that step in the process. So it's a different approach, and it's a complementary to something.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly what you're saying is you work with a lot of these other systems if you're using them, and I mean, in a way, it's over the top. You sit over the top to and then become integrated into a company's processes, and you then become one of the main screens that people are looking at to see the analytics and metrics of how the business is running.
And it's really the various aspects that we capture. That's the main strength, is the fact that we cater for so many different audiences across the organisation and build the views that are relevant to them so that they get that information. But it's all from the one source. It's all connected.
Now, companies must be coming to you because they've heard about it, but how do you approach the market to say, hey, you need our services? You might not know you need it, but you need it, and once you see what we're doing, you can really benefit you.
Yeah, typically we find that most organisations today are not yet looking for a business management system.
Well, probably
they're looking to solve problems.
Yeah.
So they might be going through a merger or acquisition. They might be implementing sort of new regulations into their business. They might be updating their IT systems. So quite often it's on the back of the IT systems upgrades that will become involved with organisations.
And is it word of mouth, or you do seminars or marketing?
Mostly references, So most of our business comes to us directly through the references. So people will recommend us. People will move from one organisation to another and take the knowledge of what we've done. So that's certainly been helpful to expand our customer base.
And I remember asking before, you answered the easy question, but the harder question was the purity of ingestion of the company data into your system. Presumably that takes a few weeks or months to sort of settle it all down.
Yeah, it can take some time. If you talk about, how do we do everything across the organisation? If you're trying to get all that detail across a business, so what are all the processes we follow? What's all our compliance obligations? What's all our systems capabilities? There's thousands and thousands of documents around the place you need to go to.
You must have consultants that help a company to manage all that and to understand it and document it and ingest it.
Yeah, our mission is to help our customers become self-sufficient in doing that. So over time, what we will do is we'll help them to understand how best to capture that information, how best to represent that, how to create the types of views and reports they need from that information. So we provide services to help them undertake that journey. We'll be involved for a few weeks, a few months, a few years, depending on the capability of the customer, the issues they need to face, their ability to provide the right type of people. So over time, though, our intent is for them to be able to manage this and continue the journey independently.
Sure. I mean, you want them to do it thoroughly but quickly so they can start getting advantage of the...
That's right.
You can't have a years-long implementation unless it's some huge planetary company or something.
Well, we deal with those.
We
deal with some very large organisations that have that great amount of complexity, and they're not going to capture it in a few months.
No.
It may take years for some of those to capture everything.
But it would, no matter which system they use, there would be the same sort of...
But the benefits start a lot earlier than that. You can get benefits in the first few weeks or months. So if you're tackling one particular issue in the organisation, the learning platform, you fix that.
Yeah, I mean, you can decide which of the most important areas that need to go into the system first and which will go quickest to start delivering you actionable intelligence.
And that's where we start. We start with an organisation saying, okay, what's your current problems? What's those real issues? Okay, we've got to integrate these two parts of the organisation together. We really need to capture at a high level the essence of those projects and get the right accountability structure. Well, okay, that's something we can address. Getting that accountability structure at a high level. Or it might be, no, we've got a problem. This process is just taking too long. We're burning cash. We need to fix that. So it might be around, an energy retailer, for example. There's a big churn in customers going from one to another. How do we fix that to increase the customer satisfaction?
Sure.
Okay, let's fix those. That might be call centre operations. let's fix that first. So then we go deep into that part of the business, fix that problem, then start to go across the organisation.
Sure. And presumably, especially say smaller companies, having all of this business software under management, all the processes under management through your software, that must be what can help some of them to fight against the bigger, corporations that are their competitors.
Yeah, we hear a lot about agility, and it's another buzzword.
Agile, innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
All true, though.
It is. And so how do you respond to change more quickly?
Yeah.
You can respond to change if you have a better understanding of how your business works. If you have a really accurate model, you can determine, okay, here's some changes that are going to come, whether it be regulatory, it might be an opportunity in the market. So we really want to move, if you're a bank, want to move into the digital banking world. How do we do that and fight off the threat from a fintech? Well, one way is to understand your business better, understand what you need to transform, because whilst you don't have the benefits of a startup as a clean sheet, you do have the benefits of a very big customer base.
And
so how do you take those
resources
forward?
and all the rest.
Exactly. So you can provide that and bring that to market if you understand your business better. So whether it be a small organisation trying to compete with the big ones, or in some cases the incumbents trying to deal with a disruptor to their business, having a better understanding of what you do enables you to make better decisions as to how to change things, and then follow that change through. Who's going to be affected, have that communication plan for those people, and implement the change.
And I know that one of your favourite topics, or at least I assume so, is that you talk about Aussie companies having to be forced abroad to succeed, rather than sort of succeeding at home. I mean, it's a famous saying, you've got to make it big overseas before you big in Australia.
Yeah,
so what are your thoughts in that area?
Yeah, I think it's a shame that people have to do that, but that is the reality. First of all, we're a very small market here, compared to the rest of the world. Fortunately for us, because we sell in the enterprise space, we have a lot of a decent market size in Australia. So for us, we can actually develop a pretty good business in Australia, and that's what we're concentrated on. But for many companies, to get the market share, to actually have a decent sort of customer base, they need to go offshore. So that's just to get to the market. There's very little addressable from Australia. It's either North America or Europe is where the largest parts of the market are, and in a growing sense Asia. Secondly, funding. Funding is much easier to get. It's been talked about so many times. In Australia, we're reluctant to invest in technology. We'll invest in mining companies. We'll invest in bricks and mortar things. Look at the property boom. How much money we pour into proven assets that increase in time. But technology is something that people don't invest in. Yet I think many people today would have loved to invest in Atlassian.
Well, I mean, technology is a real force multiplier.
Exactly.
And look at, as you said, look at Atlassian. Look at the multiplication of force there. I mean, it's really tremendous.
I think the last aspect about moving abroad is there is often a reluctance of Australian companies to buy Australian products. Unlike in American culture, they like to buy American products.
Very patriotic,
or German companies might like to buy German products. In Australia, it's a reluctance, and it's easier. Many companies in Australia have found it easier to sell internationally than to sell in Australia. That's a great shame, because there should be no reason for that.
But you must have international clients.
We do have some, but we haven't chased them. So companies like Icelandair, and we talked earlier about references, because Qantas had used that product very successfully, and Icelandair were implementing the same applications, that was a direct reference from Qantas. So we've got a small number of international clients, but it's not because we've gone to that market.
Sure, they've come to you, which is a real compliment.
It's a fantastic. Another one we have through the regulator. The regulator actually said, well, hey, you guys, you should look at the software that Holocentric have. So they were a recommendation, and they are a customer today.
Any other customers you want to mention?
So in Australia, we deal with mostly the large organisations. So Westpac has been a client for many years. Qantas from the early days, particularly around their compliance obligations with Civil Aviation Safety Authority. Department of Defence has become a very large client of ours. Air Services Australia, the National Disability Insurance Agency. For a wide variety of clients, some utility organisations like Sydney Water and Western Power, Sydney Trains locally. So there's quite a diverse range of customers. We don't specialise in finance or utilities or government.
No, your software's good for any business.
But they all have similar issues. They all have people. They all have processes. They all have systems they use. They all have compliance obligations. They all have too many regulations. They always have change.
And it's all done by Band-Aids and Excel, right?
It's done the silos, as you talked about before. So these guys will fix a problem here, and they'll duplicate the implementation in a different part of the organisation, and it's massively inefficient. I
mean, we're in 2016, and we're still. It's like I like to explain how, for all our advancements in technology and all the 4K TVs and you know, satellites launching, it's the black and white era of technology. You know, when you compare it to what you read about in science fiction books, and clearly it's the same for you know, the business software world as well. It's very advanced, but if you're not running that advanced software, you're still in the black and white era of technology.
You know, I've been around in this industry for quite a while, and it used to be the enterprise world drove the consumer world. So we saw things in the enterprise world first and consumer second.
Now
and it's been reversed
course,
totally. So the consumer adoption of technology is so much faster than what the large enterprises can possibly adjust to. So they've got to bring this slow-moving, cumbersome beast along the journey to be able to take advantage of the new technology.
I mean, we still know about banks that are using 40-year-old core banking software because they have to. You know, it's like trying to change that is like trying to, as the other cliche says, you know, repair the engine on a 747 in flight.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's not so easy.
It still does the job. You know, the basic job of banking is done by a lot of those applications, and the fundamentals haven't changed. Maybe change next year with new payment systems and so on, but they'll adjust to that with their system.
So we can see that, I mean, the future for a lot of companies is to get in touch with someone like yourself and to say, hey, help us manage all these processes and modernize. But where do you see things, you know, in 5 or 10 years' time? Maybe we'll be putting on holographic headsets to walk through all our business processes, and the part of your name that says Holo will move into that direction.
I think so. I think in many ways, some things don't change very much at all. The back end, we see, you talk about the 40-year-old banking systems, that's absolutely the case, or insurance applications, large government organisations. You know, we hear about the Department of Human Services looking to upgrade their Model 204 applications that have been around for decades. So a lot of that is quite slow moving, but then a lot of it's moving so quickly. And I think things like big data has been a big change. So actually learning what to do with big data. So actually all this data that's coming in is drowning in the stuff now. What do we do with this? How do we make sense of it? I think the Internet of Things as well. So the capture of information through various devices, and yet whether it be the holographic headset or whatever it might be that people will be using, but I think there will be a trend towards that, because that way you can capture data real time from the field rather than having it entered after the event in like a batch or a pseudo batch environment. So if you can capture that immediately through the Internet of Things, and that's just starting. You know, I think it's going to be, there'll be all the hype associated with that, there'll be some disillusionment.
Sure, the Gartner's famous...
Exactly, the hype curve.
Before we get to the plateau of productivity.
That's the one, all that stuff. So the slope of enlightenment, so that will happen. And, you know, we see that with the internet. You know, if you go back in the 90s and all the dot-com frenzy of the time and massive valuations of companies and all the disappointment after that with a big bust. But ultimately then, we saw the internet really taking off. We saw the iPads come out, and we saw the iPhones take off.
And I imagine, I can see a future CEO looking at his dashboard with the HoloLens on, and it's all like Minority Report, you know, just waving your hands through the air, manipulating things that way.
And just talk to it and give you the answer.
That's it. Hello, computer. How's our business running today?
Yeah, we see some of the customers starting to go in that space of using avatars, for example, and look at how those avatars can interact with people.
And is that something you're offering, or are they plugging something else in?
It won't be our software, but we'll have all the smarts behind the scenes. So all the rules that need to be applied are still the same rules. Okay, they might be disseminated through different means, a different channel. The channel might be a virtual thing, and being able to interact very effectively with people, but then to be able to capture that back, but apply those consistency of those same rules to the different audience.
Now, as we get towards the end of the interview, my second last question is always if you could please share the best piece of advice that you've ever received to help you get where you are today, which is the CEO of a large Australian business company selling to the world.
Yeah, I think the best advice was don't listen to all the advice. but seriously, I think one of the important things was if you've got a dream, if you've got a belief, hold on to that. I think it's very easy to get dissuaded from that and say, okay, you lose track of that. Deal with the issues one by one. Don't try and solve them all at once. You've got little things you've got to overcome. It's always going to be that next hurdle. But when you get to the hurdle, you'll find a way over the hurdle.
Well, the opportunity.
Hold on to that dream. You know, have that big, hairy, audacious goal out there that's going to drive you towards where you want to go. Have a belief in that and have faith in the right people. And that's the other. You know, have great people around you in the organisation. There's only so much you can do. Having the right sort of technical people, the right sort of professional services organisation enables that all to be realised.
Well, that's very good advice, Bruce. So what is your final message to iTWire viewers and readers and to your current and future customers?
I think there's great capability in this country. You know, we're very proud to be an Australian company. We're very proud to have very good Australian customers in this customer segment. We have an opportunity to really expand from here. we're in a position today where we're well cashed up to expand organisation. That's what we're going through at the moment. And I think it's a journey that you take. For us, it's been quite a few years to get here. We may have been able to do it more quickly, but hold on to that dream, continue with that, persevere, don't give up, because you can use the talent that's available here and really go a long way.
Sure. Well, Bruce Nixon, CEO of Holocentric, thank you very much for your time, and best of luck with the future versions and all your customers.
Great. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.